fine right there. I'm going to walk over. Growing up, we all sat through at least one fire department demonstration about how to prevent wildfires. The majority of us grew up with Smokey the Bear and just general safety practices of how not to start wildfires in the summer months. I believe that we should be advocating for action to enforce for responsible logging and brush management across lands in the United States in order to combat the growing trend that we've had of wildfire crises across the country. Annually, millions of acres are affected by fires and also by irresponsible and unsustainable logging practices. I believe that we, as citizens, should be enforcing actions to prevent wildfires that go further back into land management, brush management, and responsible logging practices. Addressing deforestation, demystifying what sustainability is, and acknowledging that there is more that we can do as average citizens is our first step towards action in working towards preventing these devastating wildfires that have been ravaging across the country. Deforestation affects everyone, everywhere. The World Wildlife Foundation quotes out that the world loses 18.7 million acres of forest per year. In a monetary term, our forest products throughout the world contribute an annual $186 billion of global trade. Our forests are one of our biggest natural resources across the country. And we use them, we use products that we gain from forest in all walks of life, from our paper products to fuels, to clearing out our farming lands. However, illegal and unsustainable logging contributes an annual 15% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So across the board of issues that we're looking at, deforestation and irresponsible practices from the beginning start affecting us from our health, our economics, and then when we come down and we no longer responsibly manage our forest lands and brush areas, we put ourselves at risk for devastating wildfires. We don't have to stop using our forest resources in all walks of life. However, we do need to address whether or not we can do this in a responsible and sustainable manner. There are certain steps that we can take that actually ensure for us to be responsible caregivers of the earth. So sustainable logging is not as difficult as it's actually made out to sound. Loggers are not the bad people. I grew up with my father, who's a logger, and in the 70s, a lot of political trends were to make loggers seem like the bad people. However, in the United States, loggers are advocating for stricter practices. They know that, hey, this can very easily turn into a limited resource. Our trees, our land, it's important that we take care of it for future generations. Pennsylvania State University professor of forestry, Jim Fenley, has defined out sustainability in land practices through 8 concepts in regards to whether or not a forest that's been logged was done so sustainably. The first would be the diameter of trees that are remaining in the forest. Second is the species composition, whether or not we are actively replanting and encouraging multiple species to grow in one area. The third is the residual qualities of trees left behind. We know what natural selection is. The same goes for whether or not we leave healthy trees or thin trees that aren't actually going to be able to regenerate the forest. The fourth would be seed sources, whether or not we're leaving ways for nature to naturally replant its forests. The fifth is regeneration, whether or not we actually see new growth coming back behind. The sixth would be presence of competing plants. Have we clear-cut the land and left absolutely nothing? Is it just the trees, or are the trees not thriving but other scrub brush? The seventh is presence of competing wildlife. One of the best ways to see whether or not an ecosystem is thriving is the actual presence of a well-rounded ecosystem. Are there deer? Are there rabbits? Are there squirrels? Are multiple chains coming back around into the ecosystem? And the last would be the amount of soil damage that was caused. Soil damage is something that has flown very far under the political radar when it comes to properly managing our lands and how we, in general, affect the area that we're specifically working on, but also the surrounding areas, as that damage can actually move through. If we work harder to promote sustainable practices, all involved can win, whether it's not the people that are making money off of what we're doing, or the consumers who are relying on these paper products, and anything that we're getting from our forest-based products. In addition, we can reduce fuels from wildfire. If we actually are going through and doing sustainable land practice instead of just letting things grow, when it comes time for the fire season, the dry season, we're removing the fuel for these wildfires to go through. It's devastating because they don't have as much to burn. We can protect our ecosystems. Every small place, every second grader learns about ecosystems. We know that they are extremely important to whatever area that we're in. If we're actively working to look at the impact from all levels of that ecosystem, we can move forward in our sustainable practices. And last, we can enforce standards that protect from soil erosion and watersheds. Everyone's heard of the Standing Rock issues with Dakota pipelines, watersheds, soil erosion are major issues across any sort of land development and work that we're doing in any area. When it comes to logging, if we practice sustainable logging and brush management, we can provide for safer fire seasons, and we can help prevent some of the fueling to the devastating fires we see every year. We must answer the issue that we're having as a nation to our forest fire and wildfire crises. The Canadian Forest Service quotes that in the last decade, their fire suppression cost nationally from $500 million to $1 billion a year, just for their forest management. The Arizona Department of Forest and Fire Management has been working on creating methods to take responsibility down to community levels. They promote what they call community wildfire protection plans, in which communities go out and look and detail out fire plans and safety plans that are unique to their neighborhoods. Additionally, the Arizona Department of Fire Management provides funding to these communities for fuel mitigation. They will actually go and teach people, hey, these are the plant lives that's around your house. This is flammable when it comes to building new communities. They will work with the developers and landscapers to put out safe distances of plant life. They will find things that aren't as flammable, things that are more sappy, things that are safer for communities to plant around so that in the future they can mitigate the danger within these neighborhoods. Now, in the United States Forestry Service, controlled use of wildfire is one of the ways that we do land management across the nation. However, within this controlled use, we've been having issues as the years go on, and we are not able to use this tool for land management because we are too busy combating wildfires that have started by some other source and are out of control. That is taking funding, skills, and then at the end, support for controlled use of wildfire is diminished because anyone that has seen an area that's been affected by a wildfire knows the pure devastation that you're looking at. It's something else standing there. So we're actually losing tools that we have for our proper brush management by taking a step back and not having these discussions of how we prevent these, what is responsible practices, and by failing to work and refine the tools that we have available, we are condemning our future generations to a lack of knowledge, to unhealthy lands, the possibility of having weaker ecosystems around them, or to be losing out on a large part of our economy and our way of life in the products that we use, that we have the ability to increase the sustainability. As of the 5th of August 2018, the following states were combating active wildfires: Alaska, Arizona, California, Colorado, Florida, Hawaii, Idaho, Montana, Nevada, New Mexico, Oregon, Texas, Utah, Washington, and Wyoming. That is a crisis. The only way that we can move forward to prevent wildfires, educating our people, moving forward on sustainable logging and brush management practices, and acknowledging that there is an issue, but we have have ways that we can move forward and solve it. We cannot continue this effect of losing millions and millions of acres of land and forest because of irresponsibility. We have a duty to the land that we call home, and this is very easy to fix by moving forward with simple education for sustainable practice.